Ukraine launched more than 10 drones overnight on the Crimean Peninsula, including 3 on the port of Sevastopol. According to Russian forces, who added that their air defense system repelled all the attacks on the port. Strikes on Russian-held targets have intensified in the past 2 weeks itself. Though Ukraine has not confirmed any role in those attacks, it says destroying infrastructure is preparation for its planned ground assault. However, as Ukraine prepares for a planned counter-offensive, senior leaders are saying that it may not live up to the hype. Ukrainian defense minister has said the expectation from the counter-offensive campaign is overestimated in the world. Experts now fear that Ukraine may not get the required advantage to win on the battlefield, as it will be hard to push the Russians back to their positions before the invasion.
Запитання, а міністру за відповіді. До побачення.
Дякую, бережіть себе. Разом до перемоги.
All right, for more on this, we have with us prominent journalist Fred Weir joining us from Moscow. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Thank you.
Fred, the fact that Russia is using phosphorus munitions, which can cause heavy fires and severe human damage in particular, is it a sign of Russia's desperation in the Bakhmut region especially?
I don't think it's a fact. It's an accusation, which might well be true. But Russia uses quite a lot of different weapons, including thermobaric ones, which are like giant flamethrowers. The video over Bakhmut last night did look like white phosphorus, which is not banned in military battles. The Americans use it. And there are probably no civilians left in Bakhmut, so it would be a permitted use of phosphorus weapons. But of course, it's horrible. The battle for Bakhmut is probably it's been going on a long time, but it's probably nearing its end stage. The Russians control about 90% of the town. The former town, because it's completely demolished, and they're gradually pulling the noose tight around the Ukrainians who are still left there in something like 2 square miles of territory. So what we're looking at now, I think the battle for Bakhmut will wind down, and as the ground is hardening, spring, summer is coming. We'll look for big military operations. The Ukrainians promise one soon, a great counteroffensive, and probably these drone wars that are going on, these real barrages of drones are a symptom of preparations for that great offensive.
Fred, just taking from what you just mentioned, the counter-offensive. Now, some analysts have said that it's more hype than substance when we talk about a Ukrainian counter-offensive. Do you feel Ukraine has what it takes to carry it out?
If I did, it would be just a feeling, because facts are rather sparse here. There's a tremendous amount of disinformation out there. A lot of it quite deliberate, meant to confuse, to deflect. So we don't know. Ukraine has received enormous amount of military aid from the West. They have been conducting pretty searching mobilizations, pulling together manpower. So they must have at least one more big push in them. Everybody is waiting for it and expecting it.
Right.
The Russians are girding for it. They've built massive fortifications all along the southern line of contact because they expect the blow to come from Zaporozhye direction toward the Azov Sea.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's just, we just have to wait for it and see.
Right. So Ukraine could have it in them to carry out one full-blown push, one last push perhaps, and Russia is expecting it to come from the Zaporizhia region. Fred, if we were to move on to the other aspect of what we just discussed, now the Wagner group could be out of the front lines and the Chechens may be replacing them. Now, Chechens as per their reputation, they're known to be a violent group. Now, under Ramzan Kadyrov's rule, who's obviously known for his violent and aggressive ways, how will this change the scope of the war? And who's to say they won't face the same issues that Wagner complained about on the front lines?
I don't think it will change anything. As I said, the battle for Bakhmut is probably almost over. There's a rotation going on. A great deal of this, Yevgeny Prigozhin complaining publicly about the lack of ammunition, very dramatic appeals that he makes. I think a lot of this is theatrics. He does have a dispute with the defense ministry because, the Wagner group is some very strange thing. It's a company, a private company that fights wars with modern weaponry and full-scale assaults and so on. But it's not in the chain of command. It's not part of the defense ministry setup. So there's something feudal about this in Russia. The Chechens are a similar thing. Yes, they're an armed force within the Russian Federation, but they seem to do their own thing. And it's not, I don't know, the Americans also have private contractors who do a lot of the surrounding military functions, but they don't actually fight. The Wagners are frontline, perhaps the best assault force that Russia has. So I don't really understand this tension. I mean, I understand that it's based on jealousies and a struggle over resources, right, and so on. But I don't really know how much about it is true, or you can take home and call it fact.
Right. Thank you for joining in on the broadcast, Fred. That was Fred Weir, who's a prominent journalist who joined us from Moscow.
Thank you.